My gosh, I am so excited to be here. I am deeply grateful to All Things Open for inviting me to speak today. I'm so excited by all of the other speakers that have participated today. It's been a wonderful afternoon, and I'm about to close us out with some very interesting conversations. But many of you have been listening most of the day. I'm actually going to ask you for your participation as I go forward. So we're going to start with hopefully an easy-ish question, and you can just shout these out, and I will repeat them into the microphone. So, fundamental question. What did you want to be when you grew up?
Computer programmer.
Programmer, yes. Not what you're doing now. Great. What did you want to be? A doctor. Come on, what else? Yes. Astronaut, secret agent. President, yes. There's still time. We may all have what it takes to be president. I remember being asked this question when I was a kid, and this was a whole exercise where we had to put a thing on our locker with our name and a quick summary of what did we want to be when we grew up. And I remember distinctly how I answered that question. I wanted to be a ballerina firefighter. If anyone else shared that ambition, we need to talk after this. I pursued neither. I don't know what this meant to me as a 5-year-old kid. What I know now that it means is that I've never known what I wanted to be. So when I say that I have a software background, we kind of have to go back to the beginning a little bit. When my dad first tried to teach me how to program, and I hated it. So I got around to a STEM-focused high school, and they said, well, you have to take Intro to Java. And I hated it. At which point, I went to go get my math degree, and they said, well, you have to take Intro to Java. And I hated it. By that point, I finally got out of college, and I needed to support my spouse who was pursuing his PhD. So I got my first data entry job, and my supervisor said I needed to program some macros for him. And I said, I don't program. And I remember very distinctly he said, that's nice. Which is how I first started writing my own Excel Visual Basic macros. Thank goodness I have not written one of those in a very long time. I've also spent some time playing around in Microsoft Access. Also perfectly happy, not having played with that in a very long time. At this point in my career, I still did not identify anywhere remotely near a software engineer, but I did get to my first more data-centric position where I had to learn SQL. And then I learned a lot of SQL. And then there was a lot more SQL. And it really got to the point where people started telling me, you need to stop using SQL. You're doing things that don't belong there, which was how I first transitioned over to being a full-stack engineer. And after a few years literally touching every part of the tech ecosystem, I found myself as a Ruby on Rails engineer. That's the short version. So, before I get too deep into this topic, I want to come back to what is it that we care about when we're thinking about diversity? Because it's a topic that's come under some scrutiny, it's met with some criticism, and there's one aspect in particular that I really want to focus on today. And that is that we want to have unique perspectives so that we can challenge our assumptions. I'm going to start with a silly example here. There is a topic that's been causing tension and conflict for eons. It's Taco Tuesday. The question is, hard shell or soft shell? Your family can't stop fighting. You're down to the point where you're making a fortune wheel of hard shell and soft shell tacos to just be like, I don't know, what's it gonna land on? And then finally, a little voice speaks up. Why not both? And it's really, this particular issue aside, the idea is that we just want to bring in a new perspective. We want to have someone else's ideas. And sometimes we identify that through our gender, our ethnicity, whatever sorts of things. And I'm going to focus more on the actual experiential background that isn't, to someone else's point, a checkbox that we can tick on an HR form. So let me start with also, what am I considering unconventional? I think for a vast number of people, they see a CS degree as kind of the first step. This may or may not have happened in your career. And at least if you haven't actually gotten the degree, maybe your first job was in tech and then that's all you've ever done. Like this is just the industry you live in, this is what you breathe, this is where all of your expertise is. So when I say unconventional, it's just not that. So it's a very, very broad distinction. You may find yourself like not quite sure where you straddle here. This is not a judgment of good or bad. I'm just trying to sort of break us down into a couple of very broad categories. So I'm going to start with a story, and then I'm going to start asking the audience. When I interviewed for a job, somebody noticed my music degree on my resume, and they said, "Oh, so you've been writing any music software?" Trying to look for an intersection between this past interest that I had and this career that I was pursuing. And I said, no. Now here's the question. Do I have any chamber musicians, jazz combo participants, a cappella singers in the audience? Hi, you're my friend right now. Would you like to come up for just 1 second? Give them a big hand. Like, say thank you for this, because they had no idea. Thank you so much. There's a microphone over here. Could I please ask your name?
Melody.
Melody, it is so nice to meet you. I'm Sharon.
Nice to meet you, Sharon.
So tell me a little bit about what instrument did you play? What kind of ensembles did you participate in?
I play a lot. Right now, I'm mainly a vocalist and a bassist. I played violin in middle school and half of high school, switched to string bass for symphonic band in college, switched to jazz bass halfway through. Recently, I've been playing with the Triangle VGM Jazz Jam group, doing jazz bass. That's a lot of fun.
Phenomenal.
And front woman for a metal band.
Yes. Now, here's the thing about smaller ensembles. They're usually not done with a director. So like a really large choir or symphony or something, you'll have someone telling you what to do. So in those smaller ensembles, how do you sort of work with your bandmates? Like, how does that work?
There's usually some stronger voices and some followers to some extent, but at least when I'm in a group, I try to make sure that different people have a moment to be asked what they want to do. And if you have a good group, you get a good dynamic going, and you don't have to be as intentional and like structured about it, and it's a little more freeform.
Yeah. And when you're performing, like, how are you all sort of like, how do you know when to start, when to stop? How are you sort of paying attention in that moment?
Yeah, it's kind of that mesh of just being used to how each other look and react, and communication, particularly on stage. You are in jazz, keeping a close eye on each other, passing solos. Someone will be doing what they do and then look up to see who else wants to pick up next.
Oh, awesome. So thank you so much for coming up here. Everybody say thank you to Melody. And that's what Melody was getting to near the end there is where I was focused. There's a lot of nonverbal communication that happens in those environments, and you're performing live, so you don't have the time to just be like, hey, it's your turn. Start your solo now. Like, you want the music to keep flowing. I also was curious, do I have any recovering theater kids? I might be picking on performers in particular right now. No? So I was talking to a techie friend of mine, as in a theater tech, who did a lot of backstage work. She had started her career path in tech as a QA engineer, and she said the main thing that she shared over from her prior career was troubleshooting. Because again, there's a live performance going on, there are real things happening, they want to make sure that everything is working, and the moment that it doesn't work, that they can recover quickly. A few other examples that I just want to highlight here of like really excellent transferable skill sets: athletes, the notion of practice, but also teamwork, and like having that awareness. Teachers, my God, like you absolutely want teachers to be on your team to help communicate what it is that you're trying to explain. I've actually met a lot of people from food service that tend to come into this, and like there's a huge empathy for the customer that comes with that. For veterans, Army veterans in particular, one of my very first Scrum coaches was an Army vet of like 25 years. And as I, had at the time had a perception of the military as very rigid and like these are the procedures and you do what you're told. But the truth is, as soon as you do hit a situation like live, all of your plans don't matter anymore. And like, if that isn't the fundamental of what we're trying to get at with Agile, like that's big too. And then I really didn't want to leave out just pipelines for things like incarcerated people, people who are just trying to re-enter society and absolutely need an opportunity to come in. So, the challenge that we constantly meet with diversity is that a uniform team is real smooth. Like, if everybody always agrees on the next step, you don't have conflict. You don't have problems. Like, everybody knows exactly where the next step is. But that's also where we get stifled and we get stuck. And I think we know that in the short term, that is pleasant. In the long term, that is dangerous and risky. The other challenge is that when we think about success, when we think about the contributions that an engineer should make, sometimes what somebody with an unconventional background is bringing is just not quite the same as what you'd get out of someone with a degree. You know, maybe it's just a bachelor's, maybe it's bachelor's, master's, with a ton of industry experience, maybe the kind of person who's been coding all of their life and like has gone through this. So there's very much a sense from the organization of needing to understand and recognize what exactly are these contributions and how do we recognize them properly. So I'm going to part with you on just a couple of pieces of advice. And I'm going to start with the people who may identify more with that conventional, the people who wanted to be a computer programmer all of their lives. When you work with someone with a less conventional background, it's very important to realize that people like me do not learn computers the same way, as proven by my poor father, who really tried, and at least 2 computer science teachers who also really tried. There are just going to be different ways to connect. You also are the best advocate in your organization to bring in people who aren't like you. I was sitting in a International Women's Day event that I had been organizing, and I had some things about statistics about gender hiring and like where the most diversity lay. And I had a recruiter come up to me and say, yeah, but you know, nothing replaces a 4-year degree. And I'm like, I'm right here. I'm literally right here. I'm one of your senior software engineers, and you're telling me that my background isn't sufficient to get hired. I don't think so. So you can then be the voice for those people who are trying to get into the industry. And then, just for your own benefit, go do other things. It astounds me every day when I learn something that's related to my career from a completely tangential point. One of the things I've been studying a lot recently is weaving. My floor loom at home is the best computer in the house. It's all bits. It's just things getting raised and lowered. It's loops. It's a lot of troubleshooting. But it's making so many connections to the actual code I write on a day-to-day basis. And now for my friends, my unconventional friends. The first piece of advice, and obviously this applies to everybody, but genuinely be kind to yourself. You have to understand you are in the right place. There are going to be times where you are in conversations and people are just talking right past you. That's fine. They're in their world. They'll come back, and you can always ask them more questions. It is on you to lean into your own strengths. You have them, I promise. If you're not buying, what I've already presented to you, come find me, we'll talk. I will tell you about all the other ways that what you already have is exactly what software needs. But then also be prepared to lean on everybody else's strengths, because I don't want to be responsible for networking. No one should put me in charge of security. I absolutely need those people who are really deep in it to be my support. And so I say all of that because all of us need all of us. So no matter who you are, no matter what you've done, no matter where you're going, just remember to make room for everybody, because you have no idea who's about to make your life so much better. Thank you so much.